Welcome to Module 7. In this module, we're going to learn about airport design, development, and the airport environment. And we have a really fun presentation assignment at the end of this one. This is typically a class favorite for previous classes. So we'll dive into that here in just a second. First, let's do a quick recap of Module 5, which was your last presentation assignment. Just got through grading all of those. You should all have your grades back on there. Please review my feedback to you on that. Overall, they were very, very good. Your presentations are, for the most part, spot on. So continue to keep that trend with your presentation assignments. In Module 5, we learned about the hazardous attitudes and then human factors and team resource management. So remember, human factors is a whole field of study within the field of aviation, and human factors can play into quite a number of different areas within aviation. And there's a lot of studies and factors that go into how companies and businesses as well as operators all plan to help mitigate human factors, all the way to the design of the aircraft and the human machine interface. And how we plan on, for example, switches going forward versus backwards and the ergonomics of a cockpit, and then how, an engineer creates an aircraft for an operator to operate. So overall, a great understanding from all of you from Module 5. So let's dive into Module 7. So Module 7, we'll jump into the objectives and overview here. And you'll see for this module, we're going to assess sources of airport funding. We're going to determine the impact of aviation operations on the environment, and then explain the steps in airport planning, design, and development. So we're going to learn all about the basics of how an airport operates, everything from your small private strip to your municipal strip to your large airports such as JFK or O'Hare or something like that. So first, let's talk about the assignment, because that's probably what you're most interested in as we talk through Module 7. So this assignment, again, is a presentation assignment. In this assignment, again, you're going to look for 5 but no more than 8 slides, not including the title slide or the reference slide. Make sure you have embedded audio and include your speaker notes, just like normal for your presentation assignments. In this assignment, you're going to research and select a location for an establishment of an airport that you are going to create. So I'm not looking for an airport that is already in existence. I'm looking for you to create and plan for an airport. Location can be completely of your choosing. It can be within the United States. It can be international. And then what type of airport is completely at your choosing there as well. So make sure that your presentation covers the following bullet points: the location of the airport type. So airport type as in, is it a private airport? Is it a public airport? Is it dual use? Is it a military airfield? Is it a dual military and public use airport? Or is it a giant international airport? Or is it a private flying community type of airport? Then we're going to talk about the funding and revenue sources for the airport, and the revenue sources for the construction and the operation of that airport. The steps involved during its design, development, and construction. So thinking of a phase-based approach on how you're going to get your airport up and running. And finally, the environmental impact and the considerations that you would have when designing and pitching this airport. So you could think of it as you're creating a presentation to pitch your plan to me of what your airport is going to be, covering those following bullets. So let's talk about the readings and resources that you're going to have available to you to make that assignment happen. So back here to Module 7, there'll be no instructor's corner on this one. We'll have readings and resources here. And we'll first start with the Pilot's Handbook of Aeronautical Knowledge as normal. So we'll briefly run through this real fast. So Chapter 14, Airport Operations. Again, this is geared towards pilots. And this is just going to be all the different things that you have within the airport environment. So very basic stuff such as towered airports, non-towered airports, the definitions thereof. So this is a great place to start as far as categorizing your airport. The types of airports, so civilian airports, military, federal government airports, and private airports, etc. And then you can talk about what is specific you're going to need. So is your airport going to need a control tower? When are you going to need that control tower? Or are you not going to need a control tower? Or are you going to need a flight service station, etc.? And then the rest of the chapter will go into very specific things for pilots. So how the traffic pattern works, different parts of the airport, the thresholds, different signage, and then how to read some of the charts there, Here's more signage. Here's more markings on the airport. You know what an ILS, an instrument landing system, is, and then here's lighting, airport lighting, and nighttime operations at a lighting, glide slope indicators there, and then wind direction indicators, radar procedures, and radar communications at the airport. This will go through the phonetic alphabet there. Light gun signals. Here's more wake turbulence considerations. And then let's see what else we got in this chapter here. This will be basic communications there for that. So again, this is very specifically, oh, here we go. Here's arresting gear systems, for example, engineered materials arresting systems. So for those of you who are military, you might be familiar with the cable that's on the runway. Civilian aircraft cannot use cables, so they have something that's fairly new, which is an engineered materials arresting system. So can maybe consider that for your airport there as well. So again, the beginning of this chapter is very broad and generic, and then it gets very specific as far as airport operations. As far as your paper is concerned, probably the broad stuff at the beginning is what you're going to be most interested in. Okay, next is going to be airport programs and guidance, and this is from the FAA website. So what you're going to be most concerned with in here, there's going to be quite a bit of information in here, and it could be a little daunting because you don't need to go through everything, but here are some definite things that you need to think about. Okay, so compliance, and then you can think about research programs and grants. So here's airport improvement projects. So you can kind of look and see, this can go down the line of how to fund your airport and different funding modalities that are out there that are already in place from the FAA. Here's airport improvement programs. Remember, you're creating an airport though, so and then here's some more environmental issue stuff at the bottom there. So we're talking about noise pollution, air pollution, the sustainability of that airport, even simple things such as an airport covers a lot of ground, so you need to figure out how to drain the water from there. Or what about snow removal? And then voluntary low emissions programs there as well. And then here's planning and capacity here as well. So this is a good resource as far as planning your airport and then the future growth of your airport there as well. So make sure you're not just planning the initial airport, but what you want it to grow into and how we're going to make that happen. All right, the next is going to be the challenges of airport economics for financial management. So obviously an airport is going to be very, very expensive to create and then run. So it's going to be part of your responsibility to figure out how you plan on doing that. So this is a paper that has quite a bit of information as far as how to finance an airport. So here's the abstract here. You can read through the abstract, but here's a great way to figure out how to initially fund your airport and then how to keep that funding going. So we could think about public funding, we can think about private funding. If it's an airport community, you can think of fees such as similar to an HOA. There's landing fees, for example. There's fuel taxes and then other government type taxes that can help support that. So it can be all the way from grants to private funding. However you want to find a way to fund your airport, this is a great way to a great place to start for different ways that real world airports find funding. Okay, and then finally in the reading section here, here's the environmental impact piece of airports. So this is coming out of a management book, so management of the environmental impact of airport operations. And then you can run through this textbook as well. So again, not looking for you to necessarily read this word for word, but this is a great place for you to scan some of the information that's in here so that you can incorporate that in your presentation. So I wanted to get to the table of contents here and kind of show you the highlights here. Here we go. So here's the table of contents and here's the different chapters that are in here. So what I want you to kind of consider is you can think about the different environmental impacts that are out there. So we have noise abatement and the noise impact that's out there, okay, and then environmental planning, and then I would think more at the strategic level. So this is more big picture. I don't need you to necessarily get into the weeds of exactly specifically how you're going to have your environmental plan. I just need some generic and very generalized planning for your specific airport. And then also chapter 1, this is just the generalized impact. So try to find some of those impacts that are out there, and then you describe within your presentation how you plan on mitigating those impacts. And that brings us through all of the readings. And then the videos here, this is again more specific. This is from the the Embry-Riddle YouTube channel there. And this is airports 1, 2, and 3, and we'll talk about lighting, markings, and signage. Again, Pilot's Handbook of Aeronautical Knowledge should contain most of this here. So if you're a visual and audio learner, you can just watch this and then scan through the Pilot's Handbook of Aeronautical Knowledge, and most of the content will be right there. So that's Module 7 in a nutshell. If you have any questions, as always, please feel free to reach out this week, and we'll talk to you at the end of the week. Have a great week.